Hello and welcome to Pet Education with the Connecticut Humane Society. I'm Catherine Schubert and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at CHS. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the volunteer programs that are available at the Connecticut Humane Society for members of the public just like you to get involved and give back to the pets. The Connecticut Humane Society is the leading resource in the state for companion animal welfare and has been since 1881, serving pets, families, and the community through adoption services, education, medical care, and prevention of cruelty to animals. With 3 locations in Newington, Waterford, and Westport, CHS is not affiliated with any national groups and does not receive any ongoing municipal funding. Today, joining me is Melissa Zaleski with the Connecticut Humane Society. She's the volunteer manager. And I just want to get started by having you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Thanks, Catherine. So I'm the volunteer manager, as you mentioned, and I work out of our Newington shelter. My job entails overseeing the volunteer program in Newington and also providing support for our volunteer coordinators out of our Westport and Waterford shelters. And my job is a little different every day. So some days I'm updating our website with new volunteer opportunities and answering volunteer applications that have come in, reviewing those, scheduling interviews. I interview all of the volunteers. I also do onboarding trainings, and I write all of our training materials. So I do a lot of different things.
Absolutely, yeah. So certainly keeping busy with all the volunteers that we've got, because there's a lot of work to be done, and the volunteers definitely contribute to that. So how did you get involved with the volunteer program here?
Well, I realized when I was in college that I wanted to work full-time with animals. I'd always loved animals my whole life, but working in college was when it really came to me that I wanted to work full-time. I actually was volunteering at the time at a shelter up in Maine, and I was going there multiple days a week, helping to walk dogs, train dogs, clean, groom animals, basically anything that they needed. I just couldn't get enough of it, and that's when I wanted to try to make a career out of that. My first job out of college was working at a grooming facility. Then I worked for a vet hospital for a couple of years, but I really wanted to work with homeless animals, and that's what brought me to the Connecticut Humane Society.
I love that. Yeah, very important stuff. So you were a volunteer before you got here. What would you say is the most important part about being a volunteer for any organization that needs that?
Well, definitely the most important thing is just being able to provide help wherever it is needed. I think one of the most important aspects of our volunteers is when they come in just willing to pitch in whatever. You know, some days they might be trained to walk dogs, but some days we just need a hand folding laundry, and if they're willing to just pitch in and do what we need, that's the biggest help to us for sure.
Right, that's awesome. So how long have you been with the Connecticut Humane Society?
So I have worked for the Connecticut Humane Society going on 17 years now.
Wow.
It's a long time, but it has gone really fast. I really love what I do, so I've enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, so what does a typical day look like when you're working here?
So every day is a little bit different. That's one of the things I love about my job. I do a lot of administrative work, so I do spend a lot of time at my computer, answering emails, working on the schedule. If a volunteer calls out on short notice, I might have to try to find somebody to cover for them on short notice. I also spend a lot of time working on our volunteer training materials, so creating training videos, training handouts, but then I also work directly with our volunteers. So one of the things I like to do is when I get to meet with our volunteers for an interview and get to know them and try to find a program that would be a good fit for them. I also get to work with our volunteers when they come in for their first shift. So if they're coming in to get started, I'll give them a tour of the shelter, help them get acclimated, show them around, show them where everything is. And then depending on which program they've signed up for, I will also conduct some of the hands-on trainings. And that's when I get to work with the animals, and that's really a fun part of my job.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always nice, getting that interaction with them. And it's so important too when it comes to the training materials, because with animals, every single animal is different and what they need is different. So when you're hands-on with them, it's so important to get that training and really know it inside and out as you come on as a volunteer. Yeah, that's fantastic. So what does an average day look like for any of our volunteers then?
That's really going to depend on which program they've signed up for. So we actually have about 20 different volunteer programs. I don't think I have time today to talk about all of them, but I will tell you about some of the ones that are the most popular. So some of our volunteers work directly with our animals. So we have dog walkers, cat cuddlers, and critter cuddlers. When they come in for a shift, they'll sign themselves into the building and head right back to our animal holding areas. They will spend the entire time that they're there, it's typically about 2 hours, directly with the animals. So getting them out of their enclosure, taking them out for some exercise, some playtime, and some snuggles. So those are very popular programs. But then we also have volunteers that help in different support functions. We have what we call germ busters. They come in the morning, they help us clean in our dog kennels. So they're mopping floors and hosing out the kennels and disinfecting them for us and getting the dog set up for the day. We also have cat assistants who come in and they help us clean in our cat rooms. They also feed the cats in the morning. And we have laundry helpers that come in. They just work in our laundry room for a few hours, making sure that the machines stay moving. So they are doing our laundry, making sure we have clean and disinfected pet bedding, and then they also run our dishwashing machine so that all of our pet supplies, the litter boxes, the food bowls, all the toys, those have to get cleaned every day. We also have desk volunteers that help greeting customers. We have photography volunteers taking photos. So just depending on what they're doing, it's all going to be a little bit different, but there's lots of different opportunities for people to get involved.
Absolutely. And every single one of those volunteer positions are so integral for making the daily things happen at the Connecticut Humane Society, right? So
absolutely,
they make the staff workload so much easier, and it's so appreciated for what they do. Everything from the dog walking that helps the dogs, get outside, get their exercise and enrichment, to, cleaning those dishes and making sure that all the germs are gone so we can use all those things that we have to with all the animals that are in our care. Definitely. So it's fantastic. So many different cool programs. What is the favorite part of your job?
Well, obviously working around the animals, knowing that I'm making a difference for pets in need, that's a big part of why I work for the Humane Society. But I also really love getting to know our volunteers on an individual basis. We have so many phenomenal volunteers, people with big hearts who are so generous. They'll stop what they're doing on a moment's notice and come to the shelter if we need a hand. So I really love getting to know them on an individual basis, especially some of our volunteers who have been coming year after year after year. You really get to know everyone. It's really a team environment, almost like a family environment. Yeah. And then surprisingly, another part that I really love about my job is when I do get to create training materials, training videos and handouts. I went to college for English and creative writing, and so when I get to put my writing skills and be a little bit creative, I really do enjoy that.
Yeah, and those training materials are very great, very helpful, so it's going to good use. Okay, so, and like you mentioned, volunteers have been here for a long time. We have some volunteers that have been here for over 20 years, right? Yes. So you've definitely come to know some of those very, very closely.
Definitely, yeah. And we even have some volunteers where it's become a whole family affair where, it'd be somebody and then they get their spouse on board and then their adult child, and then down the road, even their adult grandchildren. So it really, they're kind of spreading the word that we need help, which is great.
That. Yeah, so helpful. So let's talk about that. What's the application process like to get involved as a volunteer?
Sure. So we do require volunteers to be 18 or older. That's really a safety and a liability issue. But if we have anybody under 18 that really wants to help, we do have some other ways they can do a service project for us. We have some ideas for that on our website. We also would encourage their family to get involved fostering pets, because then we can approve those pets to go to a home with children. That's a great way that kids can be involved. But to work in the shelter, it is 18 or older. We do have a short video on our website that anyone can watch to learn about what it's like to volunteer. There's an application process, and then they come in for an interview. And we like to meet with everyone one-on-one so we can get to know them and try to find a program area that would be a good fit for them.
Right. And then timing-wise, if someone wants to get involved 1 day a week or 3 times a week, is that something that's offered too?
Yeah, it depends on which program they're signing up for. Some of our programs are very popular and we don't always have openings. For example, at our Newington location, we don't always need dog walkers. We have about 50 a week that come in. And so we only fill those openings as people drop out of the program. A lot of our volunteers have been coming in for years. But if, depending on what our needs are, if somebody wants to put in more than 1 shift a week, we're definitely usually able to accommodate that.
That's great, right? Because Westport definitely always needs dog walkers, and Waterford too. It's always helpful to have those extra helping hands.
Yes.
Okay, so Thank you so much for sharing about the volunteer program. Is there anything you wanted to add that we didn't cover about it?
Well, I just wanted to say, I really appreciate all of our volunteers and everything that they do to help us. I really feel that it's important when they come in and they're able to give our pets individualized care. Our staff sometimes are really busy. They don't necessarily have the time to sit down for half an hour with a shy dog, but the volunteers do have that time, especially our foster volunteers, because they take pets home and spend 24 hours a day with them.
Right.
And so they're just able to give them so much more individualized care than we could.
Yeah.
And then more so than that, I think, what's so important about our volunteers is when they leave the shelter and they go out into the community and they tell their friends and family about what we're doing, the pets that they've helped, some of the medical cases that we're working on, and they really advocate for our pets or convince their friends to come and adopt. I think that's another way that they make a huge difference for our animals.
Absolutely. It's building that community of pet lovers and pet advocates too. It's so important to have those pet lovers speak up and work towards helping those in the community. Okay, so before we jump to the next part of this segment, I just wanted to share a few great stats from the volunteers from 2022. In last year alone, there were 433 volunteers that gave 17,120 hours of their time back to the pets. That's an incredibly long time.
Yes, and that does not even include our foster volunteers. We count that separately.
Right. So our fosters are, again, those who are taking pets into their home to care for them. We had 233 fosters that volunteered their homes for 721 pets over the course of last year. So lots of pets going home too. So for our volunteers in general, they had spent 3,592 hours cuddling with cats, which socializes them, helps them get used to new people, and prepares them for a new home. And then we also had 3,791 hours spent walking dogs, which again is just to get them that essential exercise and the enrichment that they need. And finally, there were 52 pets that got bottle feeding care too in foster care. That's when they really just need that extra helping hand from somebody all throughout the day, 24 hours a day. Whenever they need to be fed, they get fed. So those fosters are incredible, just giving the time.
They're amazing. That's a huge commitment because they're up in the middle of the night bottle feeding those little infants that are orphaned, and they literally are saving their lives by doing that.
So wonderful. Absolutely. Okay. So for the remainder of this episode, we're going to jump over to our Newington location to speak to two incredible volunteers who have done a lot for CHS. So over to them with special guest Spot.
Hi, I'm Keith Lindstrom. I'm a volunteer at the Humane Society. I walk dogs, I train dogs, I feed dogs with the Pet Pantry, and I transport dogs from the Bissell Foundation.
And I'm Joyce Comer. I'm also a volunteer at the Humane Society in Newington. I do photography for the Humane Society, and I'm also a dog walker.
I've been a volunteer literally all my life. I started volunteering when I was going to the YMCA and Boy Scouts back when I was 10 or 11 years old. It's just something I've always done. I volunteered all throughout my professional career at Pratt & Whitney, and when I retired 13 years ago, I just knew that I was coming here and going to another facility to contribute and give back. It's something that I've always wanted to do. And of course, I love dogs, and it's a natural fit for me.
When I retired from my career in healthcare, wanted to do something with animals. My ambition as a child was to be a veterinarian, but long ago and far away, that wasn't a woman's career. So I got redirected to become a pharmacist. So when I retired, I thought this was an opportunity to work with dogs, and so I looked at the volunteer opportunities that were listed in Newington, and I saw photography, pet photography. And that's been a hobby of mine for many, many years. So I thought, okay, mesh a hobby with an opportunity to spend time with animals. So it was the perfect fit for me.
I retired from Pratt in 2010, so in January of 11, this was my first stop. And so I've been working 2 or 3 days a week here for 13 years now.
And I've been volunteering here for 8 years. Started doing some dog walking, but now most of the focus has been with doing photography.
The first opportunity was for dog walking, and so I would come in every Friday morning and walk the dogs. And some dogs are easier to walk than others, and the staff here was looking for people that would assist in dog training. So that's when I signed on to be a pet trainer as well. About a year and a half in, I was introduced to the opportunity to volunteer at the pet pantry, where we distribute food to the needy folks of the greater Hartford area. And so I certainly can lift dog food in 40-pound bags and make those distributions. So I've been doing that as long as the pantry's been in operation. And then here within the last year, the Bissell Foundation was transporting dogs from weather situations down south, whether it was Kentucky or Tennessee or Louisiana, and they transport literally hundreds of animals up to Bradley Airport, and the coordinator here coordinates all the distribution of those animals regional wide, and some of them come here. Typically 15 to 20, 25 animals come here. So I was asked if I minded driving a van up to help load the animals, and absolutely not. So I've been doing the pet transport thing for just about a year now.
A relative gave me a camera when I was 13, gave me a 35mm camera, and that kind of triggered the interest in photography. So of course, you always have to buy more lenses and more equipment as you progress. And then some personal things in my life. I took about a 20-25 year hiatus from doing any photography, and I kept hearing about digital. So I bought a digital camera, and it sat in the closet for about 6 years because it was just something else to learn. And finally, I started using it, and digital photography is totally different than film. It's wonderful. It's made me a better photographer by volunteering here. The animals are a challenge. As you can imagine, it's like children. They don't always do what you want them to do or would like them to do. So it's always challenging to figure out ways to engage them, whether it's the little guinea pigs and rabbits, or it's a puppy.
Katie Stormcloud. That picture you took of Stormcloud that's been shown a couple times. He was a big old coonhound, and I saw one of the pictures that Joyce took. He and I were out back, and I was kneeling in front of him, giving him a treat, and he just lifted his left paw and put it on my forearm, and Joyce took the snap. I happened to be right there and snapped the picture, and it's probably one of my favorite pictures. And so I'd have to say, recently, one of my favorites would be Stormcloud.
All the pets. I mean, I've had a rabbit that I was very moved by. He had torticollis, and it was a viral infection, and they said it would improve with time, so I was very taken with that. It's very hard sometimes to see the pets are ill or injured. They'll most likely improve, but it's still very difficult because they're so helpless at that point.
I've been doing this for 13 years. And my family and very good friends back in Manchester will frequently ask me, how can you go down there every week and not bring one home? And it's just something that I've agreed to with my family, that we've got other things going on at home, and having a pet in the house at this point in time would be really, really tough for us. We dog sit for friends' dogs when they go away for long weekends or something like that. But having a dog 24 hours, 7 days a week is a full-time commitment. Now, this is a full-time commitment for me. I'm here every Friday. I'm here on the first Tuesday of every month for the pantry. I'm here whenever the transports occur. It's just something that I get immense pleasure out of when I see somebody like this who just wants to snuggle and wants to play, and it just warms me to my soul. It's something I love doing.
For me, it's a way to have a pet without having a pet. I get my doggy fix when I come here. My lifestyle isn't going to accommodate a pet right now. So right now I have the best of both worlds. I can come here, I can interact with the animals, a variety of animals, and still get my fix, and also use my camera, which is a hobby as well. So it's multi-purpose. I get more out of it than I think that I give back. So.
I've learned a lot relative to animal behavior. The staff here is always willing to share tips and tricks on how to handle a particular animal, whether he or she is acting up and jumping and biting the leash, or whether it's just, you know, standard behavior: sit, stay, down, come, you know, whatever the role might be for them. But it's for me, it's learning how to handle all kinds of attitudes and all kinds of personalities in these lovable animals.
And the other pleasure for me is the opportunity to work with the staff. It's a diverse age group, and the opportunity to work with young people is always important, to keep in touch with what's going on, with what their interests are, as well as to deal with the animals.
It's working with the pets and working with people like Joyce and Diane, the other Friday walker.
My very favorite part is working with the animals. Yeah, I don't get to do that much with them, but like yesterday when I was doing the kittens, nobody was available to help, so trying to figure out a way to get the kitten to play with this hand and take pictures with the other hand. So, and then just watching the kittens. I probably took 200 pictures of those kittens yesterday, just because they were so much fun to watch.
And you're only looking for one picture.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, Keith and Joyce, for joining us today. We're so excited to have you and to hear your stories about what you've done for the pets during your time volunteering here. If you're interested in joining the volunteer program, you can head over to our website, cthumane.org/volunteer, to apply. On there, we have all of our current available positions. So like Melissa had shared before, we always are updating those because there are always different needs for the business. Finally, we'd like to give a huge thank you to our donors who make all of the life-saving programs possible here at the Connecticut Humane Society. It's because of people like you that we're able to give this care to the pets and have a huge community of pet lovers come to their aid. So thank you again. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.